After the promotion, my wife started acting strange, so I installed an app on her phone and saw horrifying scenes of betrayal. It's hard for me to believe that it's occurring to me. Despite the fact that my wife Rebecca, who is 46 years old, and I have been married for 17 years, I feel as if she is a complete stranger to me today. Due to the fact that she received a promotion and began earning more money 4 years ago, I have seen that she has been more distant ever since. On the other hand, when the lockdown arrived, she underwent a rapid change. After what seemed like a switch being turned, she informed me that she was unable to deal with being confined to her house. As a result of this quarantine, we were compelled to address the issues that had always been inside our marriage, but that we had previously been able to overlook. Initially, we were so compatible with one another, but now it seems as if we have nothing in common with one another. Although I am aware that we are not the only couple that is having trouble balancing job, children, and life, it does not make the situation any less difficult. In the years leading up to the epidemic, we had disagreements over everything, and she would always make it a huge issue every time. In the hopes of regaining the way things were before, she proposed that we seek therapy for our marriage, and I grudgingly consented to do so. Due to the fact that it was unable to locate a counselor during the lockdown, I proposed that we attempt to resolve the issues via conversation. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, it has been challenging. Because of the issues we were having, I became withdrawn, and we began sleeping in different rooms respectively. Even while we are still able to share moments of intimacy, it is not enough. Our children are fortunate to have her as a mother, but what about us? No matter what it takes, I am resolute in my commitment to rectify this situation. I want to have the same excitement that we had when we first got married. I arrived at the point when I could no longer take it. The fact that I had no idea why these significant shifts were taking place was very upsetting to me, and it broke my heart to witness my family crumbling apart. Despite the fact that they are still young, my children are able to detect that something is wrong, and it is having an effect on their mood. My gut told me that there was something more going on, something that was far more serious than the fact that our marriage was already in disarray. That's when I made the decision to do some independent research on my own. It has come to my attention that Rebecca never lets go of her phone, and she always keeps it close to her body and out of my line of sight. It seems as if she is always on it, disregarding both me and the television while she waits for the next text to arrive. It seems as if she is in a trance, with the phone being the whole center of her attention. In fact, she leaves the home, stating that she is bored, but I have a sneaking suspicion that she's going to meet someone. I've been on this site for a sufficient amount of time to be able to identify the indications of cheating, and the fact that I've been confined to my house has shown me how stupid I've been. I have a feeling that something is wrong, but I need to be sure myself. It was for this reason that I placed an order on Amazon for a voice-activated recorder and put it in her vehicle while she was sleeping. I had been waiting eagerly for 3 days before I was finally able to get the voice-activated recorder that Rebecca had located in her vehicle. A sinking feeling came over me as I listened to the tape. Even though Rebecca was the only one who spoke, it was obvious that she was conversing with a male. Despite the fact that they were chatting about business, they were also talking about how much they missed one another and how bored she was with our marriage. As she spoke about getting together with him, I could sense the enthusiasm in her voice when she mentioned it. My darkest concerns were realized to be true. Rebecca was involved in an extramarital affair. The more I listened, the more I heard them say that they intended to meet in a hotel parking lot that was close to our home. The sound of the car door closing as she exited her vehicle was audible to me when she arrived at the spot where we were scheduled to meet. It was a race in my head. Should I confront her at this moment? If I wait and acquire additional proof, should I do that? Pretending that everything was okay as my heart was crushed into a million pieces was the most difficult thing I have ever done. I was sitting there pretending that everything was fine. Unbearable was the idea that Rebecca might cheat on me with someone else. Despite the fact that my thoughts was racing and my stomach was in knots, I had to play it cool and behave normally. The fact that I am familiar with her makes it difficult for some people to understand why I do not address her right away. She is not the sort of person who is readily able to come clean, and she is quite intelligent. She would reject everything, and the argument would escalate into a significant conflict. If I did not have substantial proof, it would be impossible for me to get the closure that I need. Because of this, I decided to take things into my own hands. I also implanted a GPS tracker on her vehicle, in addition to the voice-activated recorder that I had already installed. Through the use of my phone, I was able to keep track of her every step thanks to this tracker. Although I was aware that it was extreme, I felt that it was necessary for me to learn the truth. If my suspicions were accurate, then I needed to be ready for what was about to happen. 2 weeks later, in the month of May, COVID-19 limitations began to loosen in my region, and Rebecca and I had begun transitioning back into the workforce. It was one evening after we had both returned from work that we sat down to eat supper and watch television. As is her custom, she was messaging on her phone when all of a sudden she said that she was going to go for a late-night drive in order to get her thoughts organized. As soon as she stated it, I experienced a range of emotions, including rage and relief. Because the idea of catching her in the act had been running through my head non-stop for the last 3 weeks, I had been anticipating this moment with great anticipation. Because of that, I was unable to focus even when I was at work. When I thought about how things had gone so wrong in our marriage, I couldn't help but wonder, is it possible that she was increasing her income at this time? Despite the fact that I was aware that I shouldn't accept responsibility for her adultery, I couldn't help but feel that way. I immediately put the children to bed and switched off the television as soon as I heard her vehicle pull out of the driveway. I then reached for my phone and launched the tracking application on it. I saw that her vehicle was parked in a lot that was convenient to our home. My assumption was that they had reserved a room at the hotel, and as a result, I intended to set up camp in the lobby of the hotel in order to capture them when they emerged. Was I so oblivious that Rebecca believed I wouldn't find out that she had cheated on me? I couldn't believe how reckless Rebecca was to choose such a spot for her adultery. Who, in any case, would go for a trip in the middle of the night just to get their thoughts organized? It is possible that she is taking advantage of our tough patch and wishing for some distance, or she may be thinking that I am an idiot. I jumped into my vehicle and headed to the hotel after it had been around 30 minutes after she had departed. There were just 6 automobiles in the parking lot when I arrived at the location. Despite the fact that it was not a typical crowded hotel, it seemed to be strangely quiet. After seeing that the lights in the lobby were out, I came to the conclusion that the hotel was still closed for the day. As I parked my vehicle at a distance from the others, I became aware that Rebecca's vehicle was positioned in a section of the parking lot that was more isolated. A sport utility vehicle was also parked close to her vehicle. As soon as I understood that they may be in either her vehicle or his automobile, my heart began to beat at a rapid pace, as a result of the manner in which they parked, which allowed them to see every vehicle coming into the parking lot from the highway. I was uncertain as to whether or not they had observed me. There was complete silence and darkness in the parking lot, and they were at a remote location. After turning off my vehicle, I looked in their direction to see if I could make out any signs of whether or not they were still inside the vehicle. Due to the fact that the hotel was closed, it is likely that they were in either his or her vehicle. Because the driver's side and the passenger side of the automobile were both vacant, I became more aware that they were not in the vehicle as I continued to gaze at them. I knew that she would be going back home soon since she knew that I would be concerned about her being out for such a long time at this late hour. It had been over 45 minutes since she had left the house, and I knew that she would be going somewhere soon. My heart sank as I considered the possibility that she might abandon her family and her home in order to have a brief encounter with a stranger in the parking lot of a hotel. I had been married to this lady for 17 years, yet she was not the same person. Because it was around 40 yards away, I was unable to simply drive to the hidden location where they parked. As a result, I made the unfortunate choice to get out of my vehicle and approach their car in such a manner that they would not notice me coming. It became more apparent to me that the SUV was moving in a repetitive pattern as I moved closer to their vehicles. My whole range of feelings, which I had been suppressing for the preceding 3 weeks, suddenly came crashing down on me all at once, and I completely lost it. My goal was to get to the automobile as quickly as possible, and when I arrived, I attempted to unlock the door, but it was locked. What I witnessed was so unbelievable that I couldn't believe it. While Rebecca, to whom I had been married for 17 long years, was getting close with a stranger in the parking lot of a shabby hotel, it seemed as if she was having some sort of cheap affair. The individual drove away as quickly as he could, leaving me with the impression that I was unsuccessful in my objective to successfully capture them in the act. At least she can dispute what she did, which is something I really wanted to happen. I wanted to catch them red-handed with their clothes off. As I waited for her to get home, I stayed up the whole night. It was not until 6 o'clock in the morning that she opened the door for the first time. I was able to detect that something was awry the moment I laid eyes on her. It seemed as if she had just gone through a fight since she appeared to be extremely exhausted. Even though she was unable to look me in the eye, her body language indicated that she was filled with remorse and humiliation. First and foremost, she said that she was able to provide an explanation for everything, and that it was not what it seemed to be. Nevertheless, I was already aware that she had been congregating with this individual on a number of times. She stated that she had known him for around 8 months, but she refused to reveal his identity or the fact that she collaborates with him. According to her, they were both experiencing difficulties in their marriages and a sense of isolation, which led them to seek assistance from one another. It was only twice that they came near to me, and that was when I was able to catch them. She took a defensive stance, stating that our marriage has been in a precarious state and that she has been under a great deal of stress. She did not want to part ways, but she needed some time alone in order to figure out what she wanted to do. She was unhappy that I had followed her and listened in on her chat. She even went so far as to declare that she would not stop seeing this guy because she feels supported by him, which is extremely significant, considering how awful things have been between us. I was in utter disbelief. Suddenly, I got the sensation that my whole universe had collapsed around me. What could she possibly do to me after we had been together for such a long time? I had no idea how I was going to make it through this ordeal, since the agony was so great that it was nearly intolerable. When it came to us, I was aware that it was over. I had already made up my mind to inform her that I wanted to end our marriage. The fact that she was astonished was not something I anticipated, and I definitely did not anticipate that she would feel sorry about what she had done. She had previously made it quite obvious to me that she knew she had every right to cheat on her partner, that our marriage had been devoid of love, and that she wanted to pursue pleasure in other places. I was aware that she would most likely continue her relationship with the person she had been having an affair with, and I had successfully accepted this reality. Despite the fact that it was painful, I was aware that it was for the best. I was unable to continue living in a marriage that was devoid of love, and I was unable to coerce her into remaining with me if she did not have the desire to do so. In spite of the fact that I have a strong want to yell at her for being such a sleazy person, I still want to give her the opportunity to blabber on, even though I am certain that she's going to be telling nothing but falsehoods. It is almost as if a little part of me is expecting that she would say something that will convince me to remain here and try to find a solution to the problem. I mean, I could say that I still adore her. The very act of contemplating it causes my heart to hurt much more than it does when I consume jalapenos for breakfast. I informed Rebecca that if she wants us to pursue marital therapy, she must be clean about everything that happened during the affair. I laid down the law and told her that before we can try marriage counseling. It is imperative that she sever all links with the person with whom she is having an affair, and I want to know precisely when it began. In addition, she has to resign from her position because I do not want her to be in any proximity to him. What's more, she isn't making things simple for me. She is claiming that she has previously shared everything with me, but I just do not believe her. She asserts that she has been avoiding his calls, but I am not entirely convinced by her statement. Due to the fact that they work together and she has a high position in the firm, it is not plausible for her to just leave her job. She is implying that she may be able to be moved to a different department, but I am not certain that this would be sufficient. I would want for her to compel him to either go through a transfer or quit the firm entirely. If she is unable to accomplish that, then we may as well put a stop to this here and now. As a result of all that has happened, I am very wounded and furious, and all I want is for her to demonstrate that she is prepared to do whatever it takes to repair our marriage. For me, this was a wonderful day since I was finally able to figure out who the other person was. After getting out of work early, I drove to Rebecca's place of employment in order to get a sight of the automobile that he drives. After locating it, I waited for him to do his task and then make his departure. I stayed with him for 30 miles until he drove into his driveway, at which point I obtained all of his contact information and even found a photo of him on the internet. Not only do I have knowledge on his wife, But it also turns out that he is married and has 4 children. After giving it some thought for a few days, I eventually decided to contact his wife and tell her everything that had happened. I was able to appreciate her anger and her want to face her spouse immediately. Nevertheless, I suggested that she give it some thought before making a decision. In her statement, she noted that they were going to spend the summer vacation with their extended family, which meant that the time was not good for a confrontation. As of now, it has been a couple of days, and I am uncertain as to whether or not she has confronted him. As a result of my brief conversation with my unfaithful wife, she promised to provide me with a written account of the time when the affair started, to move teams at work in order to stay away from her little fling pal within a period of 4 weeks, and to completely cut off any communication with him. At this point, I am aware that some of you are thinking, call human resources and bust those cheaters, but to tell you the truth, what is in it for me? Despite the fact that I earn a respectable income, she is still the one who brings home the bacon. If we decide to divorce at this time, I won't have to pay any money for child support or alimony. When I think about it, the only thing that makes me feel uneasy is the prospect of a custody struggle. Do not misunderstand me. I am still considering ending this entire marital situation. Please don't take this the wrong way. My main reason for agreeing to the meeting was to give the impression that I am still concerned and to buy myself some time to consult with a lawyer and consider my choices. I then proceeded to read the chronology that Rebecca had provided to me, and it felt like a blow to the chest. Even though she continues apologizing and pretending as if she wants to work on our marriage, it was obvious that she is totally over heels in love with the person she is having a passing relationship with. Let us face it, however, the ship has already set sail. If I were to consent to attending couples therapy, I would be essentially letting her know that I had no problem with her cheating on me. I am willing to wager that her partner in the affair intends to continue living with his own wife, and that she is only using me as a backup plan. To select the best attorney for me, I went downtown this morning and spoke with 3 different attorneys. Eventually, I was able to find a fierce female attorney who was able to listen to my narrative and see the written chronology. She told me that it was a good idea for me to gather such proof, and that even if it is not completely accurate, it may still be beneficial to my case in the event that things wind up becoming nasty in court. She also informed me that in my state, I had a period of 6 months from the time I discovered that my partner had been cheating on me to file for divorce if I do not do so. It would seem as if I am all right with everything. I am keeping my fingers crossed that this will be useful throughout the custody struggle, just in case. Over the course of the previous evening, I informed my unfaithful wife that I would be filing for divorce. The documents were going to be delivered to her at work, but before I did so, I wanted to have a conversation with her in a mature manner. I must say that I was not prepared for her response either. It was her assertion that I had deceived her and led her on, leading her to believe that we were going to make things better. I retaliated by telling her that she had made her bed since she had spread her legs out like a cheap thrill in a parking lot. We were both shouting at the top of our lungs when the situation reached a point where it escalated into a screaming fight. She began crying and pleading for forgiveness at one point, and she told me that she loves me after she did so. Despite the fact that I despise her for making me feel this way and for destroying my family, I am aware that I had no choice but to act in a manner that was beneficial to me. My attorney and I had a meeting, and after that, I went to the print shop to have the relevant legal paperwork produced. All of the documents were prepared and ready for Rebecca to sign when she arrived at her house. She pretended to be astonished and made an effort to persuade me that we might find a solution to our problems, but I did not fall for her. The fact that she had been lying to me about her affair for 3 years was brought to her attention, and I reminded her that I could never trust her again. I informed her that I wanted her to sign the paperwork for the sake of our children, but she refused to do so and insisted that she first consult with her attorney. She even had the audacity to declare that she did not want to be with the person with whom she was having an affair and that she wanted to have me back. That's how it is. She got the opportunity, but she failed to take use of it. Although she may continue to plead and wail, I will no longer put up with her. In one point, she suddenly switched from sobbing and pleading to an angry voice and yelled as I walked away, screaming, "Keep walking away like a coward. I will not sign anything till I speak to my lawyer." One fine day, she eventually signed the paperwork, perhaps after consulting with her own lawyer. She continues to carry out her everyday responsibilities, such as cooking, cleaning, and taking care of the children, despite the fact that the divorce processes are ongoing. It is likely that she's attempting to demonstrate that she is capable of handling things on her own. But we all know that she is unable to resist my beautiful nature and the benefits that come with being married to me. Now, I have some really interesting news to share with you today. For no apparent reason, Cynthia, the other spouse who had cheated on me, presented me with a ring. It's as hard to say how she managed to get her hands on my phone number. Maybe I accidentally gave it to her when I rushed into her office to expose my cheating spouse and her cheating husband. During our conversation over the phone, she was quite quiet and insisted that we meet up for lunch at a local cafe the next day. However, here's the catch: I am also going to meet up with her this afternoon. I am experiencing feelings of nervousness and apprehension. Who knows what she has up her sleeve? The last time we spoke, she was devastated by the fact that her spouse had been cheating on her. From what I can see, she is a company owner that puts in a lot of effort, and she appears to be in their mid-40s. At the time that I first lay eyes on her and her husband, I was under the impression that they were already well into their 50s. However, my assumption was incorrect. Possibly, they are just living a really difficult existence. Next, I used my phone to take a screenshot of Rebecca's timeline, and then I sent a physical copy of the screenshot to my attorney. Following that, I informed my supervisor that it was possible that I would not be returning from lunch. What can I say? It's possible that I won to ever return at all. We made the decision to meet up at a coffee shop that is located in close proximity to the place where I work. Upon entering, I saw that Cynthia had already risen to her feet and was prepared to confront me. While I was trying to maintain my composure, I extended my hand for a handshake. Nevertheless, she went in for the embrace instead. Even though it was a little uncomfortable, I suppose that we had an immediate connection since we were both in the same boat, being deceived and being left to pick up the pieces where we left off. She began by expressing her gratitude to me for informing her about the affair that her husband had been having. Then she revealed the information that would shake my whole life. Apparently, she was in possession of some confidential information about Rebecca that would truly irritate me. She entertained the idea of sending me a letter, but ultimately decided that it would not be enough. In addition, she wanted to give a message to Rebecca as well, but she was concerned that things might get unpleasant if they met in person. As a result, she requested me to convey the message to Rebecca, which was that she should avoid seeing her husband. It turned out that Cynthia was not a fool. Instead of going completely insane like I did, she heeded my advice and hired a private investigator to collect proof. I was impressed by her decision. Furthermore, she was able to collect emails and messages that had been exchanged between her husband and Rebecca over the course of the preceding 5 years by installing spy software on her husband's phone. My mind was blown by the news. During this time, Rebecca is very protective of her phone, as if it were the Hope Diamond, and she would not even allow me to be within arm's length of it. As it turns out, my cheating wife and her side piece have been sneaking about on some hidden app, taking care not to use their work email for anything amorous. They have been communicating with one another in a subtle manner. However, the private investigator was able to locate their messages, and it is evident that they have been engaging in the nefarious activity intermittently for a period of 4 years, with the violent behavior beginning 3 years ago. The investigators saw that they met at least twice a week at hotels and pubs, despite the fact that there were no receipts from the hotels where they had stayed. And here's the kicker: the romance began a few months before she was promoted to a higher position. Taking into consideration the texts, it is clear that Rebecca was an active participant, whilst the other person was just going along with the flow. I mean, to be honest, even a guy like me is able to recognize that. When I found her having sexual relations with the man in the parking lot, I was already devastated. But now I am much more devastated than I was before. I feel like a complete and utter failure, and I am ashamed and humiliated. This lady has been the object of my affection, and the way she shows her appreciation for me is by referring to me as elderly, unadventurous, and lacking in ambition. In addition to that, they made fun of me behind my back. A meeting with Cynthia lasted for what seemed like an eternity, 5 hours. Due to the fact that she had a backup, she provided me with a copy of all the evidence. The chronology that Rebecca had written was something that I intended to show her, but it was so clear that it would have been humiliating to even bring it up during our conversation. Following the conclusion of the meeting, she gave me another embrace, and then we parted ways. In order to bury my sorrows, I went to a pub that was close. It would seem that my ex-partner never loved me, despite the fact that I believed that we had a healthy relationship. I was unaware of the fact that she was displaying a completely other aspect of herself to another man, which she was doing without my knowledge. While she was busy sleeping her way up the professional ladder with other guys from work, I was simply the person she settled for. I was the one who took care of the kids and kept the home in order while she was busy sleeping her way up the ladder. The names of several other married managers that Rebecca had encounters with were provided to me by Cynthia. It seems like she made the decision to concentrate on one particular person, but who knows how long the other flings continue to last. At the moment, I'm experiencing a great deal of betrayal and hurt, and I want Rebecca to experience the same discomfort that I am. This lady is a complete and utter scoundrel, and she may be held accountable for her falsehoods. I'm not going to face her in a weak and cowardly manner. I have to demonstrate to her that I am not a weak person. Therefore, I will do something that she would never anticipate, something that would scare the very daylights out of her. I want to hurt her so badly that it causes her to reveal the truth about who she is. The fact of the matter is that Rebecca is an absolute master at putting up a deceptive front for the neighbors. In her interactions with our neighbors, she always presents herself as the kindest and most virtuous person possible, bringing over casseroles and other goodies. Moreover, she is the usher of choice at the church, and she is a model Christian wife who never fails to wear a grin on her face. On the other hand, she has a profound sense of insecurity over her appearance and the opinions of others. Her personality is that of a type A, and she is a natural leader. To her parents, she is a tiny angel with a crazy halo over her head. She is their daddy as little angel. They have always held me responsible for the issues that have arisen in our marriage, and they believe that she is incapable of doing anything wrong. They are completely unaware that I was able to catch her having a sexual encounter with a guy in a parking lot. However, it is now time to remove the child gloves off your hands. The moment has come to completely burst their tiny bubble. I'm going to email her parents all of those delicious text conversations and pictures, and I am going to show them their darling daughter for who she really is. Following that, I went to the print shop in order to make copies of the proof that Cynthia had provided to me. After that, I had a phone call with my attorney to go over my choices. I presented her with the proof and inquired about the possibility of filing a lawsuit against Rebecca's workplace, as well as those two other married managers. My objective is not to win, rather. I want to bring those who cheat to light and create a controversy that would get a lot of attention in the media. My attorney said that we may file a lawsuit for alienation of love, but in order to do so, Rebecca would need to cooperate, and we are both aware that she will not do so. On the other hand, my attorney did write certain legal paperwork that I might use to offer Rebecca an ultimatum to receive a better deal in the divorce settlement and to move out of my home as soon as possible. She will be roused from her sleep by this. I will convey to her that I want to file a lawsuit against her firm and the management with whom she had a close relationship, and I will also inform the local newspapers of my intentions. As an additional measure to make it seem more dramatic, I will also inform the local newspapers about it. The harm will already be done once the public learns about it, and then she will have no option but to leave our family home and leave everything to me. I mean, even if the case is ridiculous and gets thrown out of court, the damage will already be done. Oh, and just in case, I hired a lawyer to write a legal document that would allow me to file a lawsuit against her company and their bosses. Earlier in the day, I was required to collect my children from school and transport them to the residence of Rebecca's parents. The elderly members of their family are in their 70s, retired and all that jazz like that. I came to the conclusion that it would be best to have a brief conversation with them and provide them with some proof of their daughter's affair, which included some suggestive photographs that really hammered the point home. The poor father was inconsolable and kept apologizing to me, while the mother couldn't believe that her lovely daughter, who faithfully attended church, could have done something like that. When they finally understood what their daughter was actually up to, it was a little bit disheartening to behold. I was aware that it would be detrimental to them, but nonetheless, Rebecca was crying her eyes out the whole time she was on the phone with her parents when I arrived back at my house. However, as soon as she spotted me, she immediately hung off and began to stress out, asking a wide variety of questions regarding the evidence that I had on her throughout the conversation. It seemed as if her whole world was ready to come crashing down, as she was trembling and sweating like crazy. What more is there to say? When I saw her in that state, it was a pleasant experience. Rebecca was completely taken aback when I provided her with significant information on a potential lawsuit. Simply put, her response was just priceless. The way she yanked on her hair gave the impression that she was attempting to tear it out, and she seemed to be on the verge of throwing up. And just for fun, I informed her that I had already phoned the local newspaper to give them the scoop on the situation. Without a doubt, this caused her to enter a state of terror, and peaceful divorce and even alimony payments were among the options that she proposed to me in an effort to convince me to abandon the whole situation. However, all I wanted was for her to quickly get her belongings and leave our home as soon as possible. Rebecca was informed in a straightforward manner that I want for her to leave the house and remove her name from the title to our love shack when she left. Additionally, I want a peaceful divorce and shared custody of the children on a 50-50 basis. However, after a brief moment of hesitation, she eventually gave in and answered absolutely as she was still groveling on the floor. Rebecca pleaded with me to agree to a week's notice for her to quit the premises. She said that she did not have any other choices, since all of her pals were married, and her parents were not showing any interest in helping her out at the moment. It was my recommendation that she remain in a hotel that offered longer stays until the condominium that I had previously booked was ready for her to move into. In addition, it is precisely what took place. 2 days later, she was no longer in my possession and had moved to a new location. A couple of weeks later, we put the finishing touches on the divorce, and I was awarded custody of the children as well as the home. Due to the fact that she earns more money than I do, it was definitely a little bit of a blow for her, but well, everything happens in life. Following the conclusion of everything, I am focusing on getting back into shape and avoiding alcohol as much as possible. When it comes to dating, I am not in a hurry to get back into the thick of things. I am not in a hurry at all. Update today, I want to add one interesting point that I remembered. A few days after I met with Cynthia, I received a mysterious package at my office. The package had no return address, and inside was a flash drive with a note that simply read, "You need to see this." My heart pounded in my chest as I plugged the drive into my computer, half expecting some kind of cruel prank. What I found was far worse than anything I could have imagined. The flash drive contained several video files, all from hidden cameras. The videos were of Rebecca, but not just with her affair partner. There were recordings of her with multiple men, some of whom I recognized as colleagues from her workplace. Others I didn't know at all. Each video was time-stamped, revealing that this had been going on for over 5 years, far longer than I had suspected. It wasn't just one affair, it was a series of flings, some happening simultaneously. The recordings showed them meeting in hotel rooms, parking lots, even in our own home when I was away on business trips. The most horrifying part was one video shot in what appeared to be a lavish penthouse apartment. Rebecca was there, but so was another woman, Cynthia. They were laughing, talking, and then things took a turn I never saw coming. The two women were involved in a scheme to blackmail the men they were sleeping with. They had been recording everything, using it as leverage to get promotions, money, whatever they wanted. My wife was part of some sick game, playing both sides, manipulating people for her gain. The final video showed Rebecca and Cynthia discussing their next target, me. They talked about how I was so naive, how they could bleed me dry in the divorce, how they would make sure I was left with nothing. The betrayal ran deeper than I could have ever imagined. The woman I thought I knew had been lying, scheming, and using me for years. My marriage, my life, everything was a lie. Right advice, or maybe not.